Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Wise Tech for Wise Money, the podcast where we speak with entrepreneurs, investors, and business leaders about their journeys, the challenges they have faced, and how experience, technology, and intelligent strategy can create stronger and more valuable business. I'm Gary Wayne, founder of A1 Solutions International. At A1, we work with businesses to identify their pain points, bottlenecks, and we design practical systems using strategy, AI, automation, and specialist technology to improve our efficiency, client acquisition, and commercial performance. Today, I'm joined by David Parry, founder of Smart BRG and creator of the 7 Pillars, Insight to Action, which I'm particularly interested in. David's career has taken him from teaching and pharmaceutical marketing to manufacturing turnarounds, international M&A business restructuring, and performance improvement. Over several decades, he has worked with investors, business owners, and management teams across numerous industries and more than 40 countries. Through Smart BRG, David now helps private equity investors, portfolio customers, and mid-market businesses diagnose performance problems, identify hidden opportunities, and turn those insights into practical improvement plans. David is also author of the 7 Pillars, Strategies for Business Breakthrough, and is developing a new body of work around what he calls the hidden fault lines that prevent otherwise capable businesses from achieving their full potential. David, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Gary.
I'm really looking forward to hearing your journey and how you've got to where you are and what you've accomplished over the years. Maybe we could start with a little bit of background and how you came to be where you are today and what your background actually covered.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I think it was an amazing introduction, Gary. I think you summed up my last 40 odd years eloquently.
Well, you did 40 countries. Is that one a year?
It's yeah. It felt like it at times. Yeah. So there was a time, Gary, when I think mostly when I lived in France for 5 years and then 2 years before that, and during that time, this was pre-COVID, but I was away three out of every 4 weeks. I was somewhere else in the world, just traveling on behalf of clients, and. Well, we'll come back to that. So yes, I have been actually more than 43 countries.
Yeah, I mean, I see your career started as a school teacher.
It
Tell
did.
me how you got from there to here.
That's a really good question. So, as a young guy, I went to university, but I was more interested in playing with in rock bands. So I used to play in a rock band. I was a wannabe rock star. I mean, you remember those days, Gary?
Yeah,
Wannabe
sure.
rock star, long
So
hair.
you weren't in Led Zeppelin.
No, I wasn't. I used to play. I did get auditioned for Genesis once. 'Cause I never got anywhere. Obviously. No, I used to play flute and sax, soprano sax. I had great fun, but obviously I studied sort of on the side. But I was more playing musical instruments and bands and enjoying all that. But somehow I managed to get through university. But by then I was married, and I needed my then wife threatened me to she was going to leave me or I had to stop playing in the bands. I put on a suit and tie, became a school teacher. Absolutely loved it, Gary. I mean, I really loved coaching, and today I think I still teach people, just the ages of bigger children. But so I went to school teaching. I enjoyed it. I just enjoy helping kids, helping other people grow. But there was something in me at the time, and my wife was also a school teacher, but there was something that didn't quite sit with me. One, I couldn't see myself, earning the same money, doing the same job in 40 years on, and I got an opportunity to work for an American group. Before that, I found a job in marketing in a pharmaceuticals group, And of course, it was more than twice my income as a school teacher, which was one of the reasons, I think. And I learned about marketing in certainly in the pharmaceutical industry, and in their day, of course, it was pretty advanced. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I met this American group who were a finance group. They were the automotive, leasing, all kinds of. They had 13 companies in the group. Anyway, they then invited me to become their marketing director. And I realized pretty rapidly that the Americans, when we talk about marketing, they mean salespeople. So although I'd learned about the pharmaceuticals marketing, and I was in the world of actually going from marketing to actually selling stuff. And anyway, in this group, and the long story short, one of the businesses in the group was not doing well. It was failing. It was a manufacturing business. And not a big. I mean, in those days, it would have been, I guess, about 700,000 turnover. So today, it would have been whatever that is, the equivalent today.
Sure.
But they were going to can it. And me I was 27 years old, and being, 27 and arrogant, thinking I can conquer the world, but not actually knowing an awful lot. I said, well, I can fix that. And we had a bet as to whether I could turn this business around from a loss making. Anyway, long story short, I won the bet, and I ended up being MD of this manufacturing business. So we manufactured commercial parts for vans and trucks and things. So it's part metal, part wooden. I knew diddly squat about manufacturing, but I certainly had to learn pretty quickly. And anyway, it grew, and it went to, in the end, we grew up to about 7 million turnover. And I can't remember, it was 3 or 4 years, I think. And then, but it was about it. I got the bug, I think, for just fixing things, like fixing businesses.
So what was wrong with it, David? Why was it not working, and how was you able to make that turnaround that someone else couldn't?
2 key things. One, there's no structural process in their manufacturing, so it was a crazy 30 odd people in the factory with no organisation, no structure. So there was no proper buying, no proper management process in the way that people worked. Certainly, health and safety would have strung us up, I think, these days. But the other thing, the key thing, was there was no marketing. And obviously, I just come from a marketing background in pharmaceuticals, and so they weren't actually packaging what they were doing well. I mean, they were selling stuff, of course, but they weren't opening up their market. So I did a lot of marketing. I recruited salespeople, and we grew the business successfully through that.
How long did that take, Miles?
A little quick funny story about recruiting the salespeople. So this is how naive I was at that age. I recruited this sales guy. Because of the nature of the business, we would kit a big van, with all the stuff that we manufacture, with tow bars and bumper bars and kit inside for specialist tools and stuff. And so the sales guy had to have a van. Anyway, so, and I had no experience of managing salespeople at that time whatsoever. But off he went with the van, and he lived in the Midlands, and he was sending me his expense receipts every month, and I was signing them off and paying them. And he was telling me that he was doing really well, and he was meeting all these people, but I was getting no business. And after a couple of months, it didn't feel right, So I decided I was going to phone some of the customers to figure out, how were they, and had they seen this guy, and so on. And it turns out they hadn't seen him at all. And what he was doing was using the van that we'd given him. He was running a parcels business in the Midlands with our van. Oh my God! And so I learned pretty quickly about managing salespeople. Anyway, so that was successful. I left in the end because I tried the business and they didn't want to sell it. They tried to buy the business.
You tried to buy it?
I tried to buy it, yeah.
How long did your turnaround take?
In that business, probably, well, initially within a year, because we were making profit.
Oh, really? You turned it around
months.
in 12 months?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was amazing.
And but yeah, to make it grow and profitable, it was certainly over a couple of years. But I loved it. I mean, it was rolling your sleeves up,
And you're
getting
only
in.
27, 28 years old.
I was. I felt like
Unbelievable.
no, yeah, I did. I just loved it. We had a great time. And then,
Dynamic young man.
but then I left that for a bigger organisation, and I went to work for a what in the UK was a large organisation. It was manufacturing, different blends of manufacturing. It was in the days of Thatcher, and it was a company called Remploy. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but Remploy it was an organisation for Section 2 disabled people, or people with disabilities, I think you're supposed to say these days. But essentially, there were 11,000 employees, 10,500 were Section 2 disabled, and then 500 or so of us so-called fit people, but not very fit really. But anyway, and that was it was like a bigger turnaround, because what happened was the Remploy was funded by the government. It was called a Quango, and 75% of their income came from the government. Now let me tell you, Gary, this was the most amazing. I was with them for about 5 years. Most amazing organisation. Yeah, they had 4 times more employees than you would normally have, so you had no choice in that. That was just a factor of the business. But that was obviously a challenge in terms of how did you manage the costs of the business. And previously what they'd been doing was using government funding to sustain that. It was about training and employment for these people. But their products that they produced were absolutely wonderful. They were high quality, high value, but they were more worried about what they call factory loading than they were about getting the value for the products that they made, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So one of the things that we were able to do was to turn that on its head, and we built, we built a strong brands. We renegotiate lots of deals with distributors and so on. Anyway, long story short, we turned it around from 75% subvention from the government, and flipped that on its head. It took us 5 years, but we got to the point where it was then a profitable organisation. And then, of course, Thatcher decided that she didn't want that kind of organisation anyway, and she changed the rules of the game. And Remploy was then slowly dismantled. But then I went to work for a conglomerate. Where they bought and sold businesses, and I was there for 8.5 years, and that was a whole different level. So one, it was exciting for me because now it was international businesses. It was aggressive, to say, putting it mildly. They buy a business, they take cost out. excuse me. They take cost out and drive up sales. My job was to drive up performance in the business, sales performance. And it was exciting in the beginning, because it was different world. It was engineering, manufacturing engineering businesses that they bought. But ultimately, it wasn't sustained. The business, they made a lot of money, but the businesses themselves weren't left being as sustainable businesses, because obviously what they were doing was stripping out cost, drive up performance, creating profit for the owners, and then they sell it. And after a while, after some years, obviously for me, but in the end, I thought I can't be doing this. Morally, it was just wrong, because what we do we make lots of people redundant. The costs was a significant part was people redundancy, and so I left. But I had nowhere to go at the time, and I left at the beginning of 2000, or the end of 1999, and. Then it was a roller coaster for me after that. I ended up working in America for a pal of mine, building new business for him. And so I learned about a completely different way of selling. I went from my ivory tower in this group to the shop floor, walking the streets of New York, doing flybys with these guys. Whole different world, great fun. But I learned a lot from it. And then I came back here, and I think I just got fortunate in that I got the first contract I had back in the UK was a technology business, managed services business within a large data storage business. But it was 11 million turnover business that wasn't going anywhere. So the group was 500 million, but there's business with it. It wasn't going anywhere. The owners weren't happy about it, and I went in supposedly to train the salespeople. And it didn't. It was beyond more than training salespeople. It was a complete restructure of their channel distribution network. Anyway, long story short, within 2 years we turned the business from 11 million to 25 million and 60 million of forward order contracts. It was just amazing, absolutely amazing. So I was now learning not just about turning businesses, but I was learning about building channel businesses. And that also then became a feature in subsequent years. So without going a long story through my through my CV, I went from mostly tech businesses, but then M&A. So it was then people that own businesses that were either buying or selling, and I would go in either before it to align what was possible in the business, or setting it up for sale, or post acquisition where things weren't working out. And there's some significant steps in the business I ended up with. So there was one of them was a pan-European security business, 9 countries, 63 million turnover, and it was really good people in country, in the different countries, but as a group it wasn't making money. And we brought that. I was amazing. We brought the business together. We gathered all the country managers together to begin with. We worked hard as a team to determine how we were going to grow the business, and we built the planning for it. And then over a course of 2 years, we took the business from 63 million to 123 million and profit. But the big thing on that, Gary, was of course it was all about processes. I could talk forever about the processes for distribution and the IT systems and the sales and so on. We did all of that, of course. The one thing I think that was the magic of that business was that we brought 9 country managers and their senior management team together, and we worked together as a team, and we met somewhere every quarter somewhere in Europe, and we'd spend a day or day and a half working on the plan, making sure we were on track. I mean, obviously in between I was traveling a lot, which was part of my travels, but we'd also spend a day and a half playing, having great fun as a team of people. So we got to know each other personally, and that made such a difference to the way we worked, the way we share things with each other, and everyone in that business was excited to make it work. Until in the end, the owners decided they want to sell it, and I was then involved in selling the business to a much larger German group.
How did Smart BRG come about?
Originally the business in 2000, which is what I left the conglomerate. That was my business. I rebranded it later on to Smart BRG, and that was the reason for that. Was after this business across Europe, I then got moved into, or the client was now a global business, 23 countries, in a supply chain organization. Really amazing, really clever business model, well structured, and the investors had bought this business, and essentially the investors believed it should be doing. I mean, it was doing well. It wasn't an underperforming business in profitability terms. This business was doing well, but the investors believed it should be 10 times its size, and they were right. And so I was invited to go in. So this is where the 7 pillars came in. I was invited to go in and do with a team of 4 other people that they gave me, and we did a best practice audit of the business. We went through all 23 countries, through their sales teams, through their organization. It was the most intense, in-depth understanding of what made that business, what made the business tick. And for me, it was an incredible learning exercise, Gary, because obviously it was a. I mean, obviously I'd done a lot by then, but this was now looking at, what was going on in country A as opposed to country B, and country D as opposed to E, and so on. And out of that came, at the end of it, and it was successful, and the business grew, and the investors were happy, and so on. And the investors asked me, could I create basically a due diligence project for them, or tool for them to use without me, so they could do the same thing that I'd done. I'll tell you, at the time, I couldn't. I mean, I tried, I think it was around 2015 or 16. I couldn't do it for the love of no money. I had Excel spreadsheets coming out my ears, and I could not figure out how I could assimilate all this data and in a way that somebody else could use it. And then, and it bugged me that I couldn't. And then, but as time moved, and I don't like giving up on things. So, but maybe a year or so later, I met another pal of mine who introduced me to the idea of something called the capability maturity model, which is used in software. And it was like a light bulb going off in my head. That was the key for me, because then I understood. I mean, there's lots of diagnostics, lots of surveys. Some are free, some are, answer these 20 questions, Gary, and I'll tell you how to run your £100 million business. They're nonsense. You can't do that. And I knew it needed to be something far more substantial. So I started to build this model based on the 7 pillars. The 7 pillars is nothing more than 7 key areas across a business that drive performance. And so whether it's strategy or management or process or organization or people and skill or the marketing or the sales channels, it'll be one or more of those areas that's causing the business to either perform really well or not.
So and then, they're of course, the 7 pillars.
Those are the 7 pillars, yeah. And so then I created this model that I call the 7 pillars, and I wrote a book called the 7 pillars. And what I was doing was essentially, it was looking at a business saying, where are they not performing, using this capability maturity model. So it's not a one, it's not a, what do you think on a 1 or 5? This is saying, here's 5 steps for you. Which of these steps which of these scenarios fits your business, your current situation well? So it was more measured, infinitely more measured. Anyway, using that model, then I get lots of hockey sticks, because then of course what you're doing is you're improving the performance of these businesses. You're looking to say, right, you've got a sales team, or you've got an operations team, or whatever they are in the business, and you're looking at where are they today, and what steps can they take in order to improve. Then you go in and fix it, or bring people in to fix it, and it worked, and successfully. But there was a thing that I still couldn't get the grips with at the time. So working vertically, absolutely successful. Lots of hockey sticks I can show you of businesses where we got turnaround and rapid growth. But you still get this statistic in the world of M&A that says, depending on who you look at, whether it's Baines or McKinsey or whoever, and they'll say that anywhere between 60 and 70, 80% of M&As fail to deliver. They don't fail as a business, but they fail to deliver what the investors expected of them. And even in the businesses that I was working on, although they were doing well, they could do more. And what I've realised, and I guess it was the Achilles exercise, this global business, and then others that triggered it off. That for me, because what was happening in the multinational businesses, you could go to one part of the world and they'd be phenomenal, like in this one, but really good at finding new customers, at onboarding customers, really well structured, very successful at it. Nobody else in the world knew what they were doing. Then you go to another country, like in Germany, and you'd find that they had, they were phenomenal at major account management, for example. And so, but again, nobody else knew. So you get the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. And so they were not sharing that ability. Now, whether that was, and that triggered then the what I'm now doing, which thank you for mentioning, the book I'm writing is called Fault Lines, and the product that I got is called OSCAR, which is Operational Strategy Capability Assessment. So now what I'm looking at is, as well as looking vertically at what capability they've got inside a particular business or multiple businesses. Now what I'm doing with the Oscar looks across those businesses. So now I can compare country A with country B with country C, country D. What in the Achilles days in 2016 took 4.5 months and 5 people, I can now do that in less than a week, and more accurately than I could do before, because I've now got the tools to do it. And what's facilitated it, Gary, is obviously it's the background. I have now got 510 scenarios in this model that I built in this. It's a software model. It's not just about the software, of course, but the software has enabled high volume data in a short space of time. That's the key. That's the trigger. That's the key. That's facilitated it. But obviously it's still an in-depth operational diagnostic. So when you're doing due diligence, of course you do your financial due diligence, you do market diligence, you look at the people, and you're looking backwards at the business, and you're looking at the plans that business has got. So the business will say, yes, here's where we're going. But what it doesn't do is look at the operational capability of that business to deliver what you want it to deliver. And that's what I discovered in these different businesses. And so now what I'm able to do is to look at it, hence the fault line thing, is the gap between. So if I say to you as the CEO, Gary, talk to me about your, I don't know, make it up, but talk to me about your AI strategy for your business. And let's assume that you're reasonable sized mid-cap business. And you'll say, yep, we've got a policy, and and you lay out your strategy. I walk down the corridor or to the next building or the next country, and I talk to your operations guy, and I ask him a similar question and say, whoever you are, talk to me about your AI strategy in the business. That person might give me a completely different answer from you. If they give me the same answer, fantastic, then we've got a cohesive business. But in all the businesses I've worked in, usually there's a gap between them. That gap is what tells you whether that business can do more. And of course, you get duplicated costs. So country A will be spending money on developing something or a marketing plan or a strategy, whatever it may be, and country C is doing the same thing. They're just duplicating the cost. But neither side are aware of it. I'm oversimplifying it because obviously it's a bit more complicated than that. But so you're getting duplicated costs, and if you can find it and change it, then you reduce cost. The flip side of that is that if you can bring these things, if you close the gaps, like this pan-European business, you close those gaps on people alignment, for example, suddenly you've got an exponential level of growth and performance that was previously there was a ceiling on the business and it couldn't break through. But once you get like I say, you get the people aligned, you get the process and system sharing, suddenly you get a level of growth in a business. That's what I find really exciting now, because it's the area that has bugged everyone about in the M&A world, is why are these businesses not delivering the performance that I've just been talking to someone this morning where they were talking about buying into a business and using the business's cash flow inside the business to leverage the purchase. That's fine as long as that business has got the capability to keep developing and leverage. As long as they've got the operational capability to deliver and keep the cash flow going to pay for it in the first place. But if nobody's looking at that, if nobody's actually looking at how capable is that business, then it's going to have a problem, and that problem usually happens, in my experience, certainly within 12 months of acquiring a business. So anyway, bringing all that together, what I'm now doing, and like I say, with this thing called Oscar, what I do is I do the diagnostic. I assimilate the data. I identify where these gaps are, prioritize what the gaps are, create a report that shows the customer, and importantly, create a 30, 60, 90-day remedial plan, a roadmap to fix it. That stuff took months and months and months and an awful lot of money in the past. Now, like I say, because I can gather data quicker, then it's a matter of day. Whereas it's as long as the client wants to take completing the diagnostic, and then a few days. So yeah, I think it's really exciting to.
So how
Yeah.
many clients, when you talk to them, obviously you're looking for new clients. When you talk to a new potential client, how many actually get what you're saying?
A lot of them are very skeptical. They don't believe it. They don't
So
believe it
what, one
because
out of 10, 2 out of 10?
where you tend to find that it's more obvious is the small companies really don't want to get involved in it. Because they believe that and they're probably right, that their intuition, the entrepreneurial spirit they'll make it happen, and you can up to a point, and then the point is at what point of scale does that not work? So if it's one CEO or one person in a business, there's a point at which they can't go beyond. So you get the ceiling. In my experience, there's no hard and fast rule, but it's somewhere around 30 to 50 million. Above that, you're into organizational structures, particularly multinational businesses. Now you talk about to a business at that level, and they understand it straight away. They just don't know how to fix it. So if I talk to a PE investor of a portfolio business that's a 50 million annual turnover or 500 million annual turnover business, and they're in 10 countries, and I talk about the duplication of cost across the countries, or I talk about the leverage of knowledge and skill in one part of the business that's not being transferred. No, they understand it. They understand perfectly what I'm talking about. What they've unable to do previously, which is what I believe I can now do, is figure out how to measure it and then change it. And that's what I do.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm going to have to read your book. What I'm
Well,
interested in, David, in all your, as a consultant, when you visit companies, is there any major problem or situation that seems to be a common denominator with what's wrong with them and why they're not performing? Or is it just
yeah.
always a mixture?
Okay, so it's always one or more of for me. It's always one or more of these seven streams in the business. But I guess the other common denominator it'll be people. It'll be people and communication. It's not straightforward. Even for me saying, yeah, sure, I can find you the problems, but then encouraging people to share that knowledge from Latin America with the guys in Europe or the guys in Germany to share with everybody else. So the implementation bit is more, because now you're talking about the localization. So they'll say, well, no, it works in my country, and it works in my corner. It won't work in your country because we're special. Well, of course, everybody's special. So there's a whole people engagement part to bringing about the change. And I guess that's what I've done for many years. So the people bit is the most common one. It'll be the resistance in saying we already know we know what we're doing. We manage our business, and who am I to say that somebody's running a multi 500 million pound technology business, they'll know their business better than I will. But because one of the things that you see from the outside, of course, is you see it from a different pair of eyes from the people inside the business. You know the thing where you go into a business and I describe it as I'm like a man from Mars when I go into a business. So for 3 weeks or 3 months, whichever it is, I can go into a business and I will just see things differently, because after a while you get accustomed to what you see, and so you it's not that you turn a blind eye to it, you just don't see it anymore, because it becomes part of the way that this is how we work. And people will say to me, well, we've always worked this way, but that doesn't mean to say it's the right way, or it doesn't mean to say it can't be changed. And then it's about then there's a whole world of change management. But yeah, I would say the common denominator, one of those 7 areas, or one or more of those 7 areas, and will be causing issues. So it's just finding out which ones they are. So that's what the 7 pillars is all about. But then if you've got a multi-unit or multi-country business, then it's different, because now you're looking at not just one organization, now you're looking at 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 odd different organizations, maybe part of the same group. And of course, what you get at that group level is they'll amalgamate the accounts, they bring all the accounts together, and you look at the group accounts, and they're either good or they're not good, whichever. And you might have a poor performing country in one area, or a slightly less performing one, or one that's outshining. But and so financially, of course, you can see where the underperformance is. Operationally, nobody says, well, why are they, understanding why is that business not performing the way that we had. I mean, in another company I was with, this was another European business. In one part of the world, one part of this business, they had IT systems for managing really complex managed services, recurring income. And there's a business they had this, but in one part of the business, they were doing it really well. It was smooth, it was operational. They built in the process and so on. Another part of their business, selling the same stuff in a different country, it was a absolute muddle, because they had no system, no structure. They had no idea when customers are due for renewal and so on. And all that was happening was that the left hand wasn't sharing the good practice with the right hand. And so we brought those people together. It doesn't happen overnight, trust me, but we brought those people together and then proactively introduced better practices in sharing better practices at effectively zero cost to the group, because that practice was already there.
So how receptive are the people within the companies you work for to listening to an outside consultant?
It depends. Well, the way that I approach it, a bit like you said to me earlier on, Gary, about your own approach. The way I approach it is it has to be collaborative. It has to benefit both sides. So if it's an investor going in, it can't be. Well, I suppose it could, but I don't think it's wise to go and say, you're going to do this because I'm telling you to do it. Then people will resist it. If, on the other hand, you can together collaboratively say, what are the areas that we can improve the performance of this business, and so you work together with all sides. I'll give you a small example. This actually came from a guy that I saw once who was a church leader in America, and he'd gone in as a new church leader of these mega churches, like 5,000-10,000 people going to the church and so on, and he described how, as a new person going in, reminds me of my 30s, a new person going in, and he was going to transform this church and make it a 50,000 congregation. And he sold everybody, got everybody together in the congregation, sold his dream to everybody, and they all nodded wisely, and everybody was clapping hands, saying, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. 3-4 weeks later, he's sitting there thinking, well, nothing's happened. And so he goes back, he thinks, oh, well, maybe I didn't explain it properly. So he goes back again. And he goes back to the congregation, and he sells the same thing. He sells his dream of this, this wonderful thing that he can do with the church. And anyway, 2 months later, still nothing happens. And he couldn't figure it out. And so he then decided he was going to ask people. He was going to talk to people on the ground and say, well, why is it? And that you don't, why is it not happening? And they just said, well, we're happy where we are, thank you very much. In bringing about change, and I'm no change expert, believe me, but what I learned from that was, if I want to bring about change, you have to take the people with you from their starting point. So it's all very well. Well, I'll give you another example. In the Rimplay organization, I was that person standing in front of, I don't know, maybe 200 odd people, and I must have been in my mid-30s, and telling them this wonderful stuff that I was going to do for this organization, and how we're going to be the leaders in whatever we were doing. And there was this one chap that they were in the sort of factory, and there's one guy, he just leaned back on his chair, Gary, stuck his feet up on the desk, and he swore at me, and he said, Mr. Parry, do you know about being disabled? And he was absolutely right. I could have dug a hole for myself at that moment in time. But what I learned was of course he was right. I hadn't sat in his shoes. And so how on earth could I come along and say, I'm going to transform your life without understanding where you are and how I can improve your life today? And that's really the message of change in any business. Whether even if you're in a multinational business and you've got different races, different cultures, you've got different values, you will find common values amongst people wherever you are. Once you can find those shared, the shared values, the shared beliefs in what you want to do, then you can start to move. Then you can start to move people.
Fantastic. It's really good. Tell me, Smart BRG, you mentioned that you have a substantial library of modular workshops and improvement programs.
I do.
Is that marketed? Do you put that out to
Yeah,
people?
I don't do that these days. I don't do that myself so much, Gary, if I'm honest. But back when I built the 7 pillars, in order to, and logically, in order to bring about change, so you measure performance in a business, but down those streams, whether it's strategy or management or process or sales or whichever stream it was. And then in order to bring about change, I would then bring about the change personally, or with a small team of people. And that's why I built all those coaching programs. They all bespoke to the clients, but the logic was the same. And so I built, I don't know, because there's well over 100 different coaching programs. These days, I don't do that. I mean, I work with clients. I still work hands on with clients to help them change, but I don't do the coaching anymore myself. There's many other people that are better than me and got more energy than me than I have these days for doing that. And my interest is at the overall level. It's looking at
But you're sitting on a pile of gold, really, not using it.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I could get somebody else to do it and show somebody else to do it. But you're absolutely right. But I don't see. I mean, like I said right at the beginning of this, I started my life as a school teacher. I still think I am. I still teach people. They're just bigger children, and I love it to bits. There's nothing now. For me, there's nothing greater than for me to see other people grow. So if I can help somebody on their way, Gary, I've been there, I've done it, I've done my 40 years. I still thoroughly enjoy what I do, but you know what I really enjoy is helping others get on their journey. Whether it's a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old that hasn't got a clue what they're going to do next year or next month, or whether it's somebody in their 50s that's struggling with organizational strategy or organizational cultures and so on. If I can help them through it, it's like the sports thing, isn't it? You can always help somebody perform that bit better.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I think it's excellent. I mean, just before we wrap up, just talk me through. You got the 7 pillars, and now you've got Oscar. So do they run into each other?
Yeah.
So you go through the 7 pillars, you do the examination, identify the problem, and then you move into the Oscar mode.
Other way around.
The other way around.
The other way around, yeah.
Okay, talk me through it a little bit.
So if you think about it, you've got the Oscar is looking at the gaps between either you and me in the same business, your view of something and my view of that business, and I'm looking for, are we talking the same language? But we are, when we're comparing it, although neither of us realize underneath it there are 510 scenarios that from a software point of view, that's what it's looking at, coupled with the content of my book, obviously. But once you've found where those gaps are across a business, and then if you do that scale on a multi-country business, but let's stay with a single unit business for a moment, but you find where those gaps are, and then after that, you want to go in and improve performance vertically inside the business. So one is looking horizontally.
Oscar's the analysis, the 7 pillars resolves.
Exactly right.
The
Absolutely right. That's it. Yeah. And logically, the 7 pillars is what all trainers and coaches do, isn't it? They train people to do better. I the way I'm doing, I'm just measuring it. I'm doing it against a measured scale. So the whole logic of these scenarios is it says at ad hoc level, here's what it looks like. Here's what, I don't know, what prospecting looks like, or doing a proposal if you're in sales. This is what but at a fully optimized level, 5 steps higher, here's what it looks like. And between those, which one of these 5 current scenarios do you think you sit in? And people are more honest. They can't gamify it, because because you're not saying, what do you think on a scale of 1 to 10? But your idea of 7 is quite different from my idea of 7. So it's not that at all. It's saying, here's very specific. In this scenario, which one fits you? So then you're saying, okay, well, we understand that in this area with this sales team or this operations team, whatever they're at a level in this particular area of knowledge or skill or practice. How do we get them to the next level? What do we got to do? Well, here's what we've got to do. We've got to focus it, and often the people themselves will do it inside the business. And so I've come through actually doing it. And physically do it, and now just guiding other people to do it.
So I use a pillar system when I do my analysis, but I don't do it in the same way. It's quite interesting. So when I talk to people and do a discovery call, etc., I do obviously a diagnostic, but not like you do. I identify pain points, problems, think gaps in their business, and then I create a growth plan based on pillars, on what needs to be addressed. But each pillar will represent a gap in what they're doing. But it's not the same way round as you do it. And I do it using AI automation to help solve the problem, to help systemize those gaps, to bring it all together. It's quite interesting.
The only difference, I think, it's the mechanisms that you use to help them improve. So if somebody's got to improve, it's like I come back to the sports analogy. If my best pal in the States, Larry, he's an expert skier. He's also a very successful businessman. He's an expert skier, but wherever he goes in the world, he'll take a coach with him to help him. And there's always something that he can improve. But when you're looking at performance, you're measuring. Or another pal of mine is a racing driver. And
you've got some good mates.
and I've been to the track with him, and I look at not what he does behind the car, it's what his team around him are doing in measuring every single element that decides how he's going to perform, where he's going to do a certain thing on the track, or how the car's going to perform, and so on. So it's that measurement. So I'm all about measurement and structure. So as long as I can measure it, I know I can improve it. And the AI is nothing more than a tool. It just makes it easier to do. I mean, I'm sure you do it the same. If I can set AI off going stuff that I am, just doing work that I would normally take lots of time myself to do, or things that would have taken me weeks in the past, I can do in a matter of hours. So, but it doesn't solve I don't think it solves the problem for you.
No, it doesn't. Of course not. It just helps you get to the conclusion.
Absolutely. Well, it's like I say. It's like with the Oscar thing. It's like saying, how on earth would I gather? So your question, would people understand what it is? And I said, well, yeah, fine. So you're in 23 countries, and you want to understand how those 23 different parts of your business are performing. How are you going to find out? Well, I'll go along and I'll bring in a McKinsey or whoever. I'll bring in a consultancy firm, and I'll spend an awful lot of money and an awful lot of time figuring it out. Or I say, actually, you don't need to do that, because I can now gather the data from those 23 countries, and there might be, I don't know, let's say there's, because there's four different business streams that we collect data from, but that might be 12 people per country. So 12 times 20, and they are gathering data across, which for me is across these 500 scenarios underneath. Just the sheer volume of data that you've got to gather and assimilate it. So the triangulation of that data is what the AI does for me.
Yeah.
And it enables me to gather that data, triangulate it, and then, of course, I can then produce a report specifically for that business. Yeah.
Very interesting. You know, we've been talking for 50 minutes. You didn't realise
Wow.
that?
Right.
50, yeah.
I probably
I mean,
talk too much, Gary, but
no,
I
it's
can
been
I can
fantastic.
still get excited about what I do.
No, I think you do a great job, and yeah, I see a lot of synergies with what you do, and a lot that I can learn from you. About how you handle businesses, etc. Well, for people that actually want your services, etc. David, how can they get hold of you? Where can they find you?
Find me on the website, of course, or LinkedIn. Look for David Parry on LinkedIn. There's lots of us. There's not many of us Welshmen on there, I think, but the maybe
Well,
maybe we can share the link afterwards, Gary. But yeah.
yeah, definitely. I'm envious. Will they'll be on all the social media, podcast blogs that we put out on this, so everybody will be able to see where you are. But so you're on LinkedIn under David Parry. You've got a website.
Yeah, website is, well, there's the smartbrg.com, and then the Oscar part is smartbrg.com/Oscar. So it's two different websites. One is the consultancy website, and the other one is the Oscar specific.
And you
specific
actively
website.
market both of those services.
I'm trying to focus or pivot towards Oscar rather than like I said, me doing the in-depth remedial work is, I've got teams of people around me now, so that there's two fractional groups that I work with, and so there are experts in whatever area it is that the business needs fixing. So it's not just me, and so because obviously there's only so many hours in the day I've got. Bringing about the change, which of course is needed. It's all very well saying I've got a 30-60-day roadmap for change, but who's going to do it? So I will guide it on behalf of the client. The client will do it themselves. There's about 100, and I guess, well, more than 100. There's probably 200 fractional executives in these networks that I'm in, who've got different disciplines that we can bring to the party to help help bring about the change and growth. Yeah.
I look forward
So
to
it brings work for other people, and that's really that's what it's about, Gary. It's helping the businesses that I'm working for, and it's also providing work and employment for other fractional executives.
I look forward to learning more about that in our next call. But it's been a pleasure having you today, and
Thank you,
I've
Gary. I
really enjoyed
appreciate
the
it.
conversation, and I've really learned a lot. I've learned probably more in the last hour than I have done in the last 2-3 months. So it's been fantastic, and I hope the listeners
Didn't
find
learn,
it
of
the
course,
same.
Gary, is that I'm also a painter.
Right, we'll talk about that as well
Another
in the
time,
next
yeah.
meet. Otherwise, we'll be here all day.
We will, yeah. But I did publish a second book. But the
Right.
second book is a book of my painting. So I'm a surrealist watercolor painter, and have been for 40 years.
And what's
Next
the book
time.
called? Just say quickly the book.
Yeah, next time. The book is called Beyond Canvas.
Right, fantastic.
Yeah.
So everyone should note that, and when we do the next podcast, we can talk about
We
that.
talk about paintings.
All right, lovely, David.
Gary,
So,
thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate it.
yeah, I think it's been a fantastic podcast, and to the listeners out there, I want you to take on board what David said about his businesses and how you can actually grow your business and where the problems lie, and you should call him if you need that help. For me, I want to say thank you for everybody listening in. I'm Gary at A1 Solutions. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on my website. You have my details from all the other podcasts I've done. Thank you very much for listening. David, pleasure. Talk to you in a sec.
Thank you, Gary. Take care.